All right, let's drop in. Let's drop in on the subject of jobs and education. Reed, I want to go to you first. Our common friend Eric Binhofson published a paper recently with these charts looking at entry-level job loss, down 16% in AI-exposed fields. And you made some pretty, I think, sharp comments on this conversation. How do you think about this?
Well, a couple of things. So it is definitely the case that, that AI will lead to a lot of different job transformation. In some cases, flat out job loss. I mean, a simple heuristic that I sometimes use, it's a partial heuristic, is if the human being's trying to do a job by following a script that an AI can follow better, customer service, et cetera, that will happen. But obviously some of the issues here are around, kind of like questions of not just customer service, but also like software engineering. Now, that being said, even with a kind of a downbeat in, possible initial software engineering job hires, my belief is that is only a transformation issue, partially because I actually think, if anything, the thinking about how you do software and software engineering is actually going to get a lot more widespread in problem solving, because part of what AI is going to lead to is a software co-pilot for all of us. That anything that you're doing that involves thinking, anything that you're involved doing communication language, will also involve, as it were, custom software that you'll be doing. And so I think that there's still nearly infinite hiring demand for software engineers. So it's a little bit of a complicated thing. Eric is awesome, and this work is awesome. And so it's kind of job transformations, they are coming.
Yeah. You look at this first chart here, which looks at job losses, if you would, in marketing and sales. And you can see the ChatGPT inflection point in 2022 and the drop off. That blue line, for those of you watching this on YouTube, is in fact early career job hunters. And one of the biggest concerns I've got, and Salim, you can speak to this just having come back from India, is getting into a Arab Spring-like situation where you've got a large population of youthful individuals who are, on the male side, testosterone driven, without investing their time and energy to do something meaningful, to create a career, to be able to get in a position to have a family. A lot of frustration, and it could seed, I'm usually the massive optimist, but could seed a civil unrest. Thoughts on that, Salim?
So I just came back from India, and what they were seeing was initial signal is that entry-level software jobs are down about 20 to 25%, which is quite a big number there. And there are hordes of Indian engineers coming out of the workplace. Now, there is a little concern around the social implications of that. My guidance to them was, hey, go become entrepreneurs. I mean, this is like literally the best time. Find a problem that you think needs to be solved and go transform yourself. And I think it'll be a forcing function on the positive side.
Yeah. Dave, thoughts?
Well, I completely agree with what Reed was saying. I think if you look at the Industrial Revolution, the net effect is always more job creation in the long run. So he's completely right. The problem is the timeline is so short. So a lot of, I think a lot of people didn't anticipate that employers like Salesforce.com would cut off hiring in anticipation of AI that'll be in the market a few months in the future. And so it's happening much faster than just the raw job displacement you would expect. And so it's really disproportionate on new graduates. So like Salim was saying, it's the perfect time to start a company, but historically, very few people graduating from college start companies. So the net effect, what I'm hoping happens is, we've been trying to meet with a governor in Massachusetts and talk about this, and she's super competitive, but her trying to get the legislature and people to move, it's like pulling teeth. But when you have voters that don't have jobs, then that creates some acceleration and some motion. So I'm kind of hoping that the net effect of that is that people react a lot more quickly, especially political people.
Yeah, Reed, I want to read some of the comments you made and you posted on X. You said, more interesting puzzle is the drop in junior engineering roles, right? And then you said, people who understand computation will become more essential. Can you speak to both of those?
Yeah, that was a little bit of what I was saying earlier, which is if we see anything in the last, decades, is that actually, in fact, the amplification of how computation affects all aspects of human society, including human work, are essentially just going up. And that's not just mobile, not just internet. And obviously, AI is the, kind of the exponential, acceleration in this. And I think that the question is still thinking about, like, how do we put problems computation? Now, to make that a little bit more tangible for people, think about how much, as you begin to get exposed to the current AI models, how much your thinking pattern changes to more of a, how do I start with the right kind of prompt to accelerate my analysis of a problem, my thinking of this problem, the research analysis, et cetera, et cetera. And so almost like when I'm thinking about a new creative project, a new research question in terms of, like, oh, how might one, do this business problem, like a go-to-market or something else, is I think about, like, how do I put it in terms of a more detailed prompt? Now, part of the reason that's computational thinking is that one of the things that relatively few people do that you should do is most of my prompts are involved doing the deep thinking or deep research prompts. But my first prompt is, give me the deep research prompt that will, solve these or target these kinds of things. And then, so I write in a paragraph or speak in a paragraph, and then it comes back with a page and a half. Then I edit it and then I submit it. And that's the prompt that I'm beginning to drive and work off of. And that's an instance of how computational thinking will going. And I think this is going to become, you no longer have individual contributors in companies, et cetera, that we all deploy with a suite of agents. And this is just that lens into that.
I love that. I did a little research, got some numbers I want to share with you, Reed, and also get Alex's point of view on this. So today there's 150 million users on GitHub as of May of this year, which is extraordinary. And if you look at the growth in the number of software engineers, number of programmers, since 2022, it's up 50%. So 50% more programmers in the world. At the same time, what we've seen is not a decrease in salary. In other words, it's not an overglut where competition is bringing down salary. It's actually been a 24% increase in salaries over a 5-year period. And so what does that tell us? That increasing productivity, increasing demand?
So, look, I do think, I tend to, look, I would tend to want us to think increasing productivity. I do think that this is very early days in how all this is working. And I tend to not try to get distracted over much by numbers this month or this quarter that have technological underpinnings in terms of the theory of what's going on. Now, I can tell from my own work that I know that we have increasing productivity, because I know what used to take me a couple hours sometimes now takes me 10 minutes or 15 minutes in terms of getting into something. And so once you know that whatever the, what was the old line on computers and the economy, the computers are everywhere except in the numbers. Like, even if you said, hey, well, I don't have a GDP number, it's like, well, but I know those productivity increases in this case. And so that's the reason why I'm a little cautious about overreading into specific numbers. And I tend to more generalize from what I can actually see in kind of, as it were, workflows, not just my own, but other people I talk to, and seeing what's happening in companies, and, how most startups these days are, completely AI native in terms of how they're operating. And so they're finding great accelerations in it, that kind of thing.
Alex, how do you think about this, Alex?
Oh, I think we're in the earliest innings of AI automating the service economy. I think it's very instructive if you read Eric's paper that these results were most striking in fields where AI was automating rather than augmenting human labor. So I think this is completely consistent with, call it the hypothesis that humans and machines are in the not too distant future going to merge symbiotically. And this is just sort of small potatoes. This is the earliest possible trickle of what's ultimately going to turn into a flood, to Reed's point, of productivity gains and giving humanity the opportunity to chase much more ambitious problems than what here are being characterized as entry-level jobs. I think with the benefit of hindsight, 10, 20 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be horrified that so much of the economy was bound in what are here being characterized as entry-level jobs rather than more ambitious, more fulfilling endeavors.